So what does a world of our choice mean? Let me run through the title of it, because I feel it's really meaningful. Like a world, it's our social worlds, like all the places where we are interacting with other human beings. That's a world, social worlds. It's also our ecosystem, this planet Earth. That we only have this planet A, we don't have a planet B. So that we really need this planet to work on a non-human level as well, that we need the plants and the environment and the animal life also to be thriving, for us to thrive, because if we're burning down our house, we don't have a place to live, right? So it's both the social worlds of human beings interacting, and it's also the ecological world, um, of our choice that we choose it. We choose our behavior. We choose what we do. We choose what we don't do. And human beings have this special capability of making choices, um, so that we really wake up to the fact that we're choosing this world, that we're choosing also in our relationships, and how we talk about people, or how we talk to people, how we perceive and conceive of people, that we have choice. And we can, if we realize that at some point maybe we've been conditioned, or we have learned something that's not really useful for creating a world of mutuality, we can choose again, that we can choose anew, and we can choose something else. And we have that capability to choose, and it's ours. So it doesn't just happen to us. We may have something with us, as social conditioning or cultural conditioning. We can't not have that. We all grow up in a context. We all grow up in a culture. We all grow up in a family. We all grow up with what's normal and what's not. We can't not have that. It's part of language. It's part of our ability to think. But we can choose anew. We have that power of choice. That if we see that something we learned in our culture or in our family doesn't really work, we can choose something else. So that's why the choice part, I feel like that's really important. And then that it's our choice, that it's not my choice against your choice, against somebody else's choice. Because we often, even people who want to create a peaceful world and a world that works for everyone, sometimes seems to have the agenda that everyone then has to think the way they think. So if everybody just thought this way, this world would be a great place. If everybody just had this religion, everything would be fine. And I think it's really clear to see that it's not even a true premise, because every religion has really wonderful, peaceful people and also aggressive people throughout history. It's been in all religions. There's been people doing warfare and people doing peace fair. So we cannot rely on or want a world where everybody see it the way we see it ourselves. It's not respectful even of the other people, right? So it's also really taking our seriously, so that our world means that we can't agree on everything, and that's okay. And we can be different, and that's okay. And that when we are co-creating this world of our choice, we need to speak to one another. We need to have these conversations. What do we want to create? What world do we want to live in? And leave the ideas behind that excludes other people, and go with the ideas that includes people. So, so it's a world where people are relating to each other as human beings, as having the same humanity, and as having an innate goodness, an innate social nature, an innate wish to live peacefully together, that we are social beings. But really, we can just say, if we see each other if we see other people as the same as me, not the same as like me, but that like on a deeper level, the same as me. And we speak to each other on that deeper level so that we do not lose ourselves in gender or skin color or ethnicity or religious, where people belong religiously or spiritually, and what country people are from, or whatever, like all the things that sets us apart and separates us. They're still going to be there. We're still going to notice them. We're still going to see it, and we're going to have different opinions about things. But that we choose to relate to each other on that deeper level, that on a deeper level, we're all the same. And somebody growing up in America would be a different person if they grew up in Europe, would be a different person if they grew up in China, would be a different person if they grew up in Africa. From the cultural settings, from how life is different in these different places. But that at core, and like when we're born, we're all the same. We're all the same. And that sameness is fundamental for who we are. It's there before, it's inborn, and it's there before the conditioning of the culture. So that if we can really relate to each other on that level, then we can still see our differences, but also know that, like a practical way of explaining it, if you bring up your children this way and I bring up my children that way, and we may really disagree on how to bring up our children, but can we see that underneath our differences, both set of parents are wanting their children to grow up to have happy lives, thriving, successful lives. And they may see different ways of getting there, but we really want the same thing. And if we then talk from that space of wanting the same things, then we can explore, okay, so how does my style of parenting actually support that? And how does your style of parenting actually support that? And are there things that doesn't support it? And then when we can explore again together, so what kind of parenting style would support our children the best in growing up to thrive in our societies? And really having that awareness at heart when we speak to one another, and also ask it of others, and not the least ask it of our politicians and people who are leading the way, making our governments and negotiating inside of a country or internationally, that we really want people to think of other people and relate to other people on this deeper level of connecting to our common humanity. So a world that works for everyone is a world that works for everyone within a society. So we can look at our neighborhood and see, does our neighborhood, this neighborhood, is that working for everybody living here? We can look on a national level. Is this nation working for everybody living in it? Or are we losing some people? Are we letting some people down? Are we really relating to everybody who lives in this nation as an equal member, an equally respectful member of this society? Or are we saying, oh, these people over here can't really be counted on, and we don't really want to listen to them because they're too whatever to listen to? So how is it in our nations, in our government structures, and in our social structures within a nation? And then also, what does it look like on a global level? Like, how committed is this nation, these people, to having the global scene, the global world work for everyone? How much are we willing to dedicate ourselves to change places where people are suffering from starvation and lack of food, or where there's a lot of warfare going on, like Peaceful nations, could they have something to teach unpeaceful nations? Probably, I think. But are we dedicating ourselves to it? Do we want to engage there? And also environmentally, of course, it seems to be clearer and clearer that we have a very, very short range of years to recreate fundamentally how we are functioning in the world so that Earth can sustain us. Do we see the kind of commitment from our politicians to go in that direction that we want? If we want to be here 50 years from now, 100 years from now, 1,000 years from now, are we ourselves willing to really dedicate ourselves? Are we asking of our governments to dedicate themselves? Or are we letting them if too much of the conversation is about what serves us as a nation and we don't put much awareness on how's Earth doing, that conversation that's we have in focus may just be extinct 50 or 100 or whatever years from now. So are we dedicating ourselves to the right things? And are our politicians, are our governments, are our business owners and multinational companies, are they dedicating themselves to the right thing so that we'll still be here 100 years from today? And that they're not parts of the world that are flooded or dried out and all this change that seems to be coming too close. We're coming too close to that, right? So a world that really works on all levels. And are we dedicating ourselves to the right things? And something to also be aware of is a world of our choice, really holding this our very, very dear, that even when we disagree, are we willing to see the other person as equally well-intended, even when it seems like they're not, because they're doing this nasty thing I don't like? But why are they doing that? If we really say that when we were born on a fundamental level, we're all human beings, we all just want to thrive. So when somebody is doing something that doesn't look so peaceful or desirable, what is the well-intendedness at heart of that person? What is the frustration, maybe the frustrated well-intendedness of that person coming out in a maybe unfriendly way? How can we communicate with each other when conflicts arise, when two people want something different, or when two nations want something different? How can we stay connected and stay communicating instead of killing each other? Are things to explore, I think. So what does a world of our choice look like? And what I see right now around this is that it's a world where people are free to live the truth of who they are without retribution and without bullying. So this goes right into the family and our local societies, and how we're talking to and about each other, what we think is okay and not okay, in when we disagree again. That we allow for differentness, that we allow people to live, as long as it doesn't harm anybody else, let people live their lives and not call them names, and not bullying them, whether in school or adult bullying, and without retribution, of course. And that we start seeing our differentness as a resource rather than as something that separates us. Yes, we have separate realities. We see things differently. When we use that creatively, we can co-create and build so much bigger. If everybody thinks the same way, you're not going to have any like out of the box kind of thoughts. when we really allow people to be different and come together and see that differentness as a resource, we can have new and creative solutions that has never been thought of before. So really starting to embracing our differentness and also at the same time seeing our mutuality beneath our differences. Then obviously it's an end to poverty, it's an end to war. Nobody's thriving when they're starving, and nobody's thriving when they're living in a war-torn country. And not just letting it be up to that war-torn country itself, but maybe if we dedicate ourselves to a world that works for everyone everywhere, is there something we as not warfaring countries can do to contribute peace, real peace, not suppression of warfare by more weapon. And again, can we see it possible? Can we dedicate ourselves to that possibility? Can we say that, yes, that's what we want? And maybe we don't know yet how to do that. But when we say, I want it, I'm going for it. Like when JF Kennedy was saying, I'm going to put a man on the moon. He didn't know how to do that. It was totally beyond any technology at the time. That kind of thrust that we say we don't know how to do this yet. But once we throw ourselves into that game, we can totally create it. So holding that possibility high. I've already mentioned sustainability, creating a world that also Earth will function on the long term so that we can live here for a long time and be wonderful creators. We can do so much great things once we start working for each other and with and within our ecosystem, so that we can create a future that is inspiring and that is calling us forth. And if human life was not about warfare and competition and who's going to win out, if it's about us creating this world together, how amazing could we create this world? When we're not being sucked down by fighting and all these things, our creativity is free to create anything we envision. I think it could be a wonderful world, really. Okay, so how do we create it? We don't quite know it yet. I think we really do not know how to do this yet. We need to create something completely new. But things to do on an individual level is to ask yourself, am I including or am I excluding? So I might think that I'm creating a world of our choice, but I'm really creating the world I want to see and leaving everybody who doesn't want to come into my boat, leaving them out. So that's what happens when people like have the vision of God's world, whether it's a Christian God's world or a Muslim God's world. Everybody has to see God's world. Everybody has to turn Christian or Muslim to enter God's world. And so they're actually excluding everybody who's not Christian or Muslim. So even though it may feel inclusive, it's only inclusive for that group of people who are coming into the same boat and excluding everybody else. And the inclusion, the way they think about inclusion is that if you just come into my boat, you're included. But we need a world that works for everyone, both people in the boat and out of the boat, really. So really taking that question to heart, am I creating a world that is inclusive or exclusive of people? Am I willing to have all the different people in my world? so that it becomes our world and not just my world. By the way, we're living in our world anyways. Oftentimes we just relate to it as if my world is the right world and your world is wrong in some ways. So we're living in a mutual world. We're living on the same earth anyways. So it's really just getting real with the fact that we're here together and that we're co-creating everything and really honoring that. So am I including or excluding? And that goes for in the family. When my child is exuberant and noisy and having a great time and I'm maybe tired and wanting peace and quiet, am I creating my world? My child has to be quiet now. Am I compromising my world? My child is allowed to be really vigilant and loud. Or are we co-creating? Are we saying, okay, so you want this, you want to be exuberant, you have all this energy right now, and I have this desire for quiet. How do we make room for both? How do we make a solution that meets both of us? So it can be on a very individual level in the family, it can be with our neighbors, it can be in our workplace environment. Am I including or excluding there? Are we gossiping? Are we talking about people and how they should change? Or are we curious on people, wanting to getting to know, I wonder why they behave in that way. It seems very strange to me. It's not how I would be reacting. So that's another question you can ask yourself is, am I trying to understand and connect, or am I not? Every time we're not trying to understand and connect with other people, we're basically creating a world that is not of everybody's choice. That's only of my choice. And when we're trying to understand and connect, we are extending the willingness to include the other person in our world and include ourselves in their world and co-create something that works for both. So am I trying to understand and connect or not? And am I including or am I excluding? It's also in the society and on social media, obviously. What am I creating with my comments on social media? Am I creating an inclusive world, an expanding world, a world where we're trying to understand each other and connect with each other? Or am I creating a world where we are bad-mouthing each other? Basically making other people wrong and thus excluding them from our world. So on social media, in society, on like everywhere when we interact with people, are we talking exclusion or inclusion? Are we trying to understand and connect? Are we trying to separate, basically?